Welcome to the WiseTake DFS podcast, sponsored by the very best in the DFS industry, Daily Roto Sharks. If you want to be prepared for your DFS slates every night, you need to join the hashtag Sheet Squad movement. Check it out at dailyrotosharks.com now. I am your host, CK013. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined yet again by Daily Roto Sharks contributor Matt Amon. You can find him on Twitter at MattAmon123. Matt, how are we doing tonight?
We're doing okay. I had a really good morning. The morning slate was really good to me, and the night slate's a complete disaster. But I still think I'm going to profit small on the day, and we had a really good T-ball practice this afternoon, so everything's good.
Everything is good. Everything sounds good. I'll tell you who everything is good for. Now, like you, Matt, I also had some success in the early slate. I did not do so hot in the main slate, but I'll tell you who did really well, who had a really good day in the early slate. A guy that you recently won a bet over, and I think you may have blessed him in some way. And maybe it's from I don't know what it is, something about the California aura you have. You seem to have blessed Fuego because the man won over 6 Gs today, I should say, on the early slate. And I'll give him some props. He was red hot on the podcast. A lot of his plays came through. But how does it feel, man? I mean, you just beat him in a bet, and then you gave him the Jesse Chavez avatar. I'm sure he'll never forget Jesse Chavez for the rest of his life. And now I don't think he's gonna want to anymore. It almost like you kind of blessed him.
Yeah, I did. I told him he should never get rid of that avatar.
Yeah, I think
he was telling me how much he hated the avatar this morning, but now I think he has to stick with
I
it.
think he's got to get one of those fat heads of Jesse Chavez, and he's got to put it in his office. He's got to
Can you get a fat head of Jesse Chavez made?
I don't know, but he's got the money to pay them to do it now.
He does. That's awesome, man. Good for him.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Fuego. Fuego, awesome lineup, dude. So glad to have you part of the team, man. You always bring some good insight. And you were red hot on the pod. So listeners, hopefully you listen to Fuego. His name is Fuego for a reason. He can get hot. And that was certainly awesome to see. And don't forget, while we're talking about Fuego, don't forget to tune in. We got a very special weekend edition of the WiseTake DFS podcast, the NBA playoffs edition, with Roto Grinder's own winning 247. He took second in the live FanDuel final for the NBA in Miami, and he met Fuego down there. They became pretty cool, and so we're gonna have Fuego and him on the pod. That's gonna be recorded on Friday night. Late. It'll be released to you Friday night, and of course you'll have access to it Saturday morning up until lock of the game. So don't miss that. Also on Sunday, we're going to try something new. We actually accidentally streamed the podcast live last Sunday, and Fuego and Matt pointed that out to me midway through the show, so I appreciate that. But we had no idea. That was a mistake on my part. But we thought it was interesting, and we didn't advertise it. We didn't even name it properly, and people were watching. So we're going to try to record the podcast every Sunday night live. At 11 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to try that out. Hopefully we'll have a link. Check back on Twitter at @wise_take for more updates. Follow Matt, follow myself if you want more updates. But we're going to try to do a live show with a chat feature. This way some of you listeners get a chance to ask questions and really be a part of the podcast, really. Anyway, Matt, we got a lot of games to get to. Why don't we dive in?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So we're going to start off with this early slate. There should be a 2-game early slate. Obviously, we're going to spend majority of our time on the main slate because there's more games, but we are going to talk about it and get through it real quick. It looks like we've got Garrett Cole of the Pittsburgh Pirates visiting Kyle Hendricks of the Chicago Cubs. As usual, we don't have a over-under set yet because we're waiting on the winds, I guess. 67 degrees, 7% chance of precipitation, 69% humidity. Real quick with Garrett Cole, we know that at one time this guy had some K upside, but it seems like his K upside is kind of depreciating each year. In 2 starts this year, he's got about 4.91 Ks per 9. He's given up about 2.45 home runs per 9. His velocity is up from about 95.2 to 96.7, so that's a positive. But of course, he's always kind of struggled against lefties. His hard contact rate for his career versus lefties is 32.2%, and compare that to his 25.6% to righties. On the other side, we got Kyle Hendricks. He also has big K upside. For his career, he is a 20% plus strikeout guy. He had a good year in 2016, but he had really low batting average balls in play, about 250, and he had a very high left on base percentage, about 81.5. I find those to be somewhat of a predictive stat, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him regress a little bit this year. His career hard contact rate in general is 25.9%. That's pretty good. However, so far this year, I think he's only had 1 or 2 starts, but his hard contact rate is 47.1%. His velocity is actually down, which is a little scary, from 87.8 to 86.4. He's got a 254 wOBA versus righties and a 302 wOBA versus lefties. Now that I'm done talking, Matt, tell me what we're doing with this game.
Well, it's interesting if you're playing this 2-game slate. In my opinion, Garrett Cole is the worst pitcher of the 4 that are pitching.
It's true.
So, I mean, this slate is weird. Like, the Cubs and the Nats are going to be the 2 teams to stack in the 2 games, the teams you want exposure to, but they're also going to be super popular. Kyle Hendricks was really, really good last year, but he was really bad in his first start this year against the Brewers. So if you want to be contrarian, the Pirates will definitely be the least popular of the 4 teams. I think the Phillies might be slightly less popular, but the Pirates will be up there. I mean, if you wanted to go just contrarian, you would go Pirates and Phillies. But anyways, if it's the all-day slate and you're playing the all-day slate, I like the Cubs a little bit because I think Garrett Cole is just bad now. Mm-hmm. Like, he was one of the top prospects in baseball, and now I watch him, and his pitches just don't move. His fastball is just dead flat, and the Cubs are going to hit him.
Yeah.
So if you're playing the all-day slate, the Cubs are certainly in play. I don't like the Pirates for the all-day slate, and that's pretty much all I have to say. I mean, obviously for the Cubs, you like the lefties better, but Chris Bryant hits righties fine. So Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber would be my favorites.
Yeah. You're definitely right. I think the ownership is going to be tough. If you're playing the 2-game slate, I would recommending passing, first of all. But if you're going to play the 2-game slate, you're gonna have to really differentiate yourself. Everybody's gonna have as many variations of the Cubs, especially on DraftKings. Me and Matt were talking about it earlier. These are 4 decent pitchers, at least price wise. So it's gonna be tough to be able to play the Cubs and the Nats while even having just 2 pitchers in general, because I think all 4 of these pitchers are fairly, they're pretty up there. There really is no punt pitcher you can go with in this situation. Anyway, I agree with you, though. The Cubs, I love the lefties against Cole. I'm not too crazy about the Pirates in this ballpark. They just traveled out there. Now it's a day game. And, playing out in Wrigley, a big field. I'm not a big fan of the Pirates in this spot. Moving on, we got Aaron Nola of the Phillies visiting Steven Strasburg of the Washington Nationals. So Aaron Nola, we know, has some very high K upside. I kind of like this kid. 25.1% is his strikeout rate in 2016. He's very good against righties. He's averaging for his career, he's averaging about 10.29 Ks per 9. That's a 27.9% K rate. Against lefties, he's not as good, 7.4 K per 9, which is about 18.6%. His velocity is up from last year. It's up significantly from 90.1 to 92.1. As far as Strasburg, we all know Strasburg's got ridiculous K upside, 28.9% in his career. Velocity's up, which is a good sign from him, 94.9 to 95.8. He's got a 30% K rate versus righties for his career, a 27% K rate versus lefties in his career. He walks more lefties, but it's not terrible. His strikeouts per walk ratio to righties is 6.21. Compare that to 3.47 against lefties, which still isn't all that bad. What are we doing here?
Well, we know Aaron Nola is a super talented young pitcher. I was telling you pre-show, I remember back to last season, he was really good at the beginning of the season, really electric, and was really doing great. And then kind of towards the end of the season, he was doing bad, and I think his arm just kind of got tired, and he might have been dealing with some sort of injury. But it looks like he's kind of back to the beginning of last year form. So if I was playing the early 2 game and I wanted to differentiate myself, I would probably play Nola because he might be the least owned of the 4, just because he's the least known.
Right.
But if I'm playing the all-day slate, I'm probably not playing Nola. Strasburg, of course, is in consideration because he strikes everybody out. The Phillies strike out a lot. They're not very good and all those sorts of things. Yeah. These teams just played a series last week, and both these pitchers pitched against the other team.
Oh, wow.
It looks like they both had decent games, nothing special.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, for the all-day slate, I don't like any of the bats in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always play Harper or Murphy, or Adam Eaton's been pretty good. But for the most part, I don't really like the hitters in this game.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the hitters either. feel like I wouldn't mind the lefties against Nola, like guys like Eden, who at least if he gets on, maybe he could swipe a bag or two. On the Phillies, though, there's one guy that stands out to me, and I would never play him in cash. But in GPPs, I feel like this guy he's like any ace that he faces in his division, he ends up getting these random home runs, and that's Tommy Joseph. I feel like we see him hit home runs off Scherzer out of nowhere. We see him hit home runs off Strasburg, off of Syndergaard. Like, it's weird. It's like if you're in his division and you're an ace, he's the one guy on the Phillies team that has a serious like solo home run shot like thing. It's crazy. I'm telling you. It's like this guy haunts my dreams. It's Tommy Joseph every time. He's always dirt cheap. His price never moves up because after that game, as soon as he plays an out division or as soon as he plays a crappy pitcher, he does nothing. And then all of a sudden he gets that ace and he pops a home run. So keep an eye on Tommy Joseph. That's one thing I'll say. But anyway, let's move on to the main slate here. It looks like we've got Michael Wacha of the St. Louis Cardinals visiting Masahiro Tanaka of the New York Yankees. About 60 degrees. Nice day in New York. 44% humidity, no real wind. Wacha had a rough 2016. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely was a regression year for him. He's got semi-K upside, 20.6% percent for his career. 21.7% versus righties, and however, 1.07 home runs per 9 innings versus righties as well. So, yeah, he strikes out more righties, but he also seems to give up more home runs to righties. His whip against righties, 1.34. Compare that to his whip against lefties of 1.17. His velocity is also up from 93.2 to 94.8, which is a positive thing. Then we got Tanaka. He's got also another guy with semi-K upside, 22% in his career. His velocity is way up also, 90.6 and 92.2. Walks have been up a little bit this year so far, which is uncharacteristic of him. He's not a guy that typically walks very many. Just to give you an idea, 1.49 walks per 9 inning against lefties, 1.76 walks per 9 inning versus righties. So he's really not. 22% K rate versus lefties, 23% K rate versus righties. So he's a guy that you can play regardless of the lefty-righty splits. What are we doing here?
Well, we were talking pre-show. This slate is really interesting because there's several really, really ace-level pitchers that you're going to want to play. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to be stacking it up, you're going to want to find a contrarian kind of cheaper sort of stack so you can pay up at pitcher because there's so many good pitchers. If you miss at pitcher tomorrow, you're going to lose. Yeah. So, we were also talking. I feel like when I've watched Tanaka, he looks terrible in his first two starts. Mm-hmm. So the Cardinals, may be in a really kind of sneaky spot here that people won't go. So I have interest in the Cardinals bats. And then I might have a little interest in Wacha, if you're going with a more expensive stack and you need kind of a good pitcher and a cheaper pitcher. Mm-hmm. But I also am very interested in the Yankees bats too, because they're kind of on the cheaper side also. So I think overall this is kind of a sneaky game that you may want exposure to the hitters to help you afford the expensive pitcher later on.
Yeah, I really like the hitters. I'm not big on the pitchers, and that's primarily, Matt, on a guy like you who plays DraftKings primarily. You might have to choose a pitcher just because, like you said, the price points of everybody else is so crazy. But on FanDuel, I think the only value I'm seeing here are from the hitters. And you're absolutely right. There's some elite pitchers. We got Syndergaard, we got Kershaw, we got some Archer, we got some really, really expensive pitchers on the slate. So we're gonna have to look for a cheaper stack, and that's what everybody's going to do. It's a matter of finding the right cheap stack. And so we can't read people's minds. We don't know what they're going to go with. But I definitely think that the Yankees bats are very interesting here. They've been winning games. They've been doing well. Greg Bird is back in the lineup. We saw even a lot of the young guys are starting to hit better. Aaron Judge is always a home run threat. They're super cheap overall. Even Starlin Castro 2.4. We know that Wacha has some reverse splits a little bit, so you could actually look at the righties here also. And then on the Cardinals side, they've been ice cold, right? Like they've been ice cold. But sometimes a team that hit the road and they come into a town with a smaller ballpark, one guy hits a home run, maybe a guy like Matt Carpenter who's been ice cold, he gets a little home run over that porch. Next thing you know, the team gets fired up and hot. So I definitely think the hitters in both this game, specifically the lefties on the Cardinals, like Fowler and Carpenter, I really like. And then on the Yankees, it's pretty much a free-for-all. I think a lot of these guys, you can even go with Matt Holliday with some revenge narrative, right? Yeah. So I think the hitters here are interesting despite the run projections not being so high.
Yeah.
Anything to add as we move on?
No, I agree.
All right. We've got Wade Miley of the lefty for the Baltimore Orioles visiting Aaron Sanchez of the Toronto Blue Jays. This game is it's interesting because let me start with Miley. He got slight K upside, about 18.5% for his career. It's not great. In 2016, he had a hard contact rate of 33.3%. 2016, he also had a home run per 9 innings was 1.36. He's definitely susceptible to the home run ball. But even him, I don't know if everybody's eating their vegetables, but everybody's velocity, I guess it's the beginning of the year, so it's a trend you typically see. His velocity is also up, 90.3 up to 91.6. On the other side, Aaron Sanchez, he had a breakout year in 2016. We saw him in some awesome games, double-digit strikeout games. I think in 2016 his K rate was about 20.4%, which may seem high, but he did end up showing some regression with the strikeouts. He wasn't, because I mean, when he was dominant last year, he was a lot more dominant than 20%. I can tell you that. His velocity is also up from 94.7 to 95.6. Problem is he's got a little bit of a history of walking lefties. He's averaging 4.7 walks per 9 innings to lefties. He also gives up the home run ball to lefties, 1.22 per 9 innings as far as home run to lefties. The positive is he really doesn't walk righties, so his strikeout to walk ratio against righties is actually really good. So tell us what we're doing here.
Well, first thing I hear when I hear you say that is Aaron Sanchez. While I don't necessarily want to play him on this slate because there's so many good pitchers, I'm not really on the Orioles necessarily because you just said he's pretty good against righties, and we know the Orioles have a lot of righties.
Right.
And I was looking at his kind of BVP against the Orioles. He done really well against everybody in their lineup except Chris Davis, who has 3 home runs off of him, which makes sense because he said he struggles against lefties.
Right.
So that makes sense. I think Toronto is interesting here. I wonder, after the last 2 days, Toronto burning everybody, if people are willing to go back to the spot. And I think that I am, especially if I start building lineups and they're not too expensive to where you can't fit them in.
Yeah.
But we know Wade Miley's not very good. So I definitely think you can attack Toronto here. I definitely have some interest in Toronto's bats, but I don't think I have a lot of interest in either of the pitchers. Mm-hmm. Maybe Aaron Sanchez as a starting pitcher number 2 after what I just said.
Right.
A little bit.
That's true. It's like more of a situation where it's not necessarily that you like the pitcher, but it's a matter of you're looking at the other side and you're like, I really don't like the other side.
Well, the problem is when you go through the slate, not only are there 4 or 5 elite pitchers to play, mm-hmm. all 4 or 5 of those pitchers are in elite matchups, matchups / ballparks. Like they're all just in great spots. Yeah. So it's hard to take anyone that's kind of in a fringe spot. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, Aaron Sanchez is good. Like Baltimore strikes out a decent bit. Like he's good against righties. But it's in Toronto. Baltimore has a lot of power. Like if I told you they touched him up for 3 or 4 home runs and 5 runs, like you wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's no way that Kershaw and Cueto and Syndergaard and Dallas Keuchel and Oakland, Danny Duffy at home against the Angels, there's just no way all of these guys whiff. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So I know maybe I'm just supposed to be breaking down just this one game, but when I look at a slate, I really look at the whole thing, and every slate is different, and how it is in its entirety is how you're going to take it game by game.
Sure.
Also.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm with you. You definitely have to approach it from a slate perspective. And that's the thing. I'm actually, on FanDuel, from a FanDuel perspective, I'm looking at the prices of Toronto. And they're all cheap. And granted, I know they've been ice cold lately, and Donaldson's probably not going to play. And I know he got pinch ran for, so apparently I wouldn't be surprised. I would be very surprised if he played. And so looking at Troy Tulowitzki is 3.3, Morales 2.9, Jose Bautista 3.3. These are all high upside guys that they've been so ice cold. Like you said, 2 days in a row, they really burned people in general. So the question is this going to be the cheap chalky stack that everybody runs to because it's Toronto and it's against Baltimore? Or have the people really gotten fed up with Toronto, and this is finally a spot where they're just like, I'm not falling for it, I'm staying away, and then they're the tournament stack that wins you a championship? Personally, what do you think? No, I want to hear what you think first. Go ahead.
I was going to say I kind of am leaning towards the latter, that people are just like feeling tired of Toronto, and maybe they think they're not that good, as good as they were, without E5 and especially without Donaldson in the lineup. But I'll tell you, I like guys like Steve Pearce. Tomorrow he mashes lefties. He has good BVP against Miley. Yeah. Kendry Morales, can really hit. So I still think there's going to be some value. I mean, you might want to limit yourself to 6 of the guys in the lineup. Like, I'm not going to play Darwin Barney, if he's in the lineup. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get that crazy.
He doesn't do it for you?
No, he does not do it for me. But they still have plenty of power left over.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do. It's going to be very interesting to kind of gauge that because I think that's going to be a significant weight on what happens, and also following the line, see which way it moves. But yeah, I'm really not interested in the Orioles bats. Chris Davis as a one-off, certainly. I think his numbers are good. Even Seth Smith, I think, is interesting. We're still kind of waiting. I know for the Mariners, he had a lot of home runs. He came to a ballpark that's supposed to be more conducive for home runs, and he hasn't really been hitting them. It's only a matter of time before this guy gets hot and he's going to start hitting them again. And Toronto is fair to hitters. It's not the best, but it's certainly fair. So I'm with you. I'm not too big on any of these other guys. Ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, we got Daniel Norris, the lefty of the Detroit Tigers, visiting Trevor Bauer, the righty from the Cleveland Indians. Norris, another guy with high K upside. It's been a small sample size, though, so it's hard to really gauge how good he actually is. In 2016, he finished with a 1.3 home run per 9 innings rate. In his first start against 2017, he struggled a little bit, I believe. Actually, did he struggle? I don't know for sure about that. Let's see. In 104 innings pitched versus righties, he's given up 13 home runs. In 38.1 innings pitched to lefties, which is kind of strange, it's kind of reversed, 7 home runs. So he's had more than half the amount of home runs in 38.1 innings pitched to lefties than in 104 innings pitched to righties. That's a little weird. So his ratios are all screwed up. 1.13 home runs to righties, 1.64 home runs to lefties. So it's kind of, that's per 9 innings, of course. So I don't know. It's a small sample size, so I don't want to dig too deep into it. But at the same time, it has been a decent amount of innings. So it is strange that lefties seem to match this guy. It's very strange. On the other side, Trevor Bauer, he's got decent K upside. About 20.7% is what he finished with for a K rate 2016. He walks a lot of people in general, but he walks a lot of lefties. 4.27 walks per 9 innings versus lefties. 3.43 walks per 9 innings versus righties. No real hitting splits here, so lefties and righties are both in play against him. What are we doing here?
Well, right off the bat, you think to yourself, "Why I should really like Cleveland here." Right. Daniel Norris isn't that good. Cleveland is a really good lineup. I should like Cleveland. Mm-hmm. But then I start to look at their prices on DraftKings, and they're all really expensive. It's cold. The wind looks like it's going to be blowing in. It's a big ballpark. They're expensive. And that kind of curbs my enthusiasm a little bit on Cleveland. Yeah. Certainly, I like E5 a lot in this matchup. I like Brandon Guyer in this matchup. But the rest of it, I'm not too excited about. I tell you what, though, I am interested in Trevor Bauer on DraftKings as a starting pitcher, too. We know this guy has decent K upside. We know Detroit is right-handed. I said on the last podcast that I was on, I'm not a believer in Detroit this season, at least their lineup.
Fuego definitely believes in him.
I know he does. But hey, we can make another bet on that if he wants to. But anyways, like once you get past, Ian Kinsler and Cabrera, and I don't think Upton's very good anymore. And then kind of the bottom of their lineup is just, a lot of garbage to me. Mm. Jacoby Jones and Andrew Romine and Mike Matuk and Tyler Collins. Like none of these guys scare me at all. Mm. So I definitely have interest in Bauer tomorrow on DraftKings.
Yeah, no, I can certainly see the merit. And let's be honest, last year when they were dealing with all those injuries, Bauer was one of their top options. It was amazing they even went to the World Series. They lost Salazar for a while, Carrasco for a while, and it was pretty much just Kluber was their only real strikeout guy. And Bauer really picked up the slack last year. He had himself a decent little year. So we got to give him props for that. Daniel Norris, though, I think he's interesting as well. I think he's got some decent K upside. He strikes out some guys. I play mostly on FanDuel, and on FanDuel, I'm not doing it, of course. There's Kershaw, there's Syndergaard, there's too many other guys, but I think he's interesting, and the reason I bring that up is because I don't think I want to target too many guys against him. As a one-off, and just purely for tournaments, I wouldn't trust it in cash, but Michael Brantley is very interesting to me, and it's not just because, lefty or lefty contrarian. It's because, he's got weird lefty splits, Daniel Norris, which is, again, I admit, it's a small sample size. We don't know if that would hold up over a regular pitcher's amount of time. But Michael Brantley does not strike out a lot either. So if Norris is having trouble striking out lefties, and Brantley doesn't strike out very much against lefties, and in fact Brantley can actually hit lefties pretty well, it just kind of seems like statistically, mathematically, it almost works out too well. So I think Brantley's a very interesting one-off, and of course I'm sure he'll be contrarian just because of the lefty-lefty matchup. What do you think about Brantley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too much on Brantley just because of the other factors I said, like it's cold and it's a bigger park and the wind's blowing in and those sorts of things.
Right.
And he's kind of expensive on DraftKings.
How much is he on DraftKings?
But it'll 4,500.
Oh, okay. He's 3-3 on FanDuel.
Yeah, but it will certainly be contrarian on DraftKings for sure.
Yeah, definitely be contrarian.
But I don't see myself doing it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely hear you. I'll probably put him in 1 or 2. I'm a little interested. I might talk myself into it more as we go. I don't know. We'll see. I wake up tomorrow and all of a sudden I'm gonna be having dreams of Michael Brantley going and like hitting 2 dongs, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I gotta play this guy today. So we'll see. But
and then when he does it tomorrow, you can send me a screenshot of all of his points.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Yeah. Okay, you ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, we got, let's see, Tommy Milone, the lefty of the Milwaukee Brewers, visiting Scott Feldman of the Cincinnati Reds. Malone doesn't really have any K upside, 15.8% strikeout rate 2016. Huge home run numbers. In 2016, he gave up about 1.95 home runs per 9 innings. He struggles against lefties, 1.38 home run per 9 inning against lefties. He struggles against righties, 1.26 home run per 9 against righties. He's just bad. On the other side, Scott Feldman is off to a great start in 2017. 98.2% left on base rate. I'm a little concerned that's going to correct itself eventually. He is a home run prone pitcher, and his career numbers are pretty bad against lefties. So what are we doing here with Feldman, Malone, and the whole game?
Well, I think we found the offenses that we like. Both these pitchers stink. Regression is coming to Scott Feldman. He's not good. This is not going to continue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's certainly not going to continue in this small ballpark. No, I'm not a believer in Scott Feldman. I'm not going to play him.
Yeah.
Tommy Malone's even worse. He's terrible. I love both of these offenses. They're definitely my favorite 2 offenses of the slate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna try to find a way to get these teams in here if I can. Their stars are expensive. Your Ryan Brauns and Joey Vottos and Jonathan Villar's, but there is some value to be had on these teams.
Yeah.
Further down, like Travis Shaw's been hitting in the 4-hole for Milwaukee. He's only 3,800. Scott Schebler has power at 3,800. So there's some guys as you scroll down that can be in play with the more expensive pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say, like, if I'm going to stack them up, I'm going to stack up the entirety of these lineups, 1 through 8, and do it a bunch of different ways. So I'll be able to still get exposure to your Clayton Kershaws and Noah Syndergaards, to go along with them.
Yeah.
Because these pitchers are so bad. I mean, there's no reason if Tucker Barnhart comes up with 2 guys on that he won't be the guy that hits the home run.
Yeah. No. I as a matter of fact, I agree with you on the sense. I personally like the Brewers bats more. I do like the Reds bats a lot too, but kind of like what you're saying, I like the bottom of the order better. A guy like Suarez, right? I don't ever play Suarez. He's got home run upside, but he strikes out way too much. So you put him in a matchup where he's going up against a lefty, and he's a righty, of course. And then you take into account this lefty doesn't strike people out. I think that's a safer kind of matchup for a guy like Suarez. So I do like I think I like maybe him down. Even Duval's iffy because he's kind of better against righties. But we know he's got power, so I wouldn't completely exclude him. But on FanDuel, let me give you some of these prices for the 5, 6, 7, 8 that's projected currently. Suarez, Kozar's only 3K. Suarez is 3.3K. Patrick, okay, I've never even heard of this guy, but he's Kevlahan. Okay, he's the minimum on FanDuel 2K. And like you said, Barnhart is 2.3. So that could be interesting. On the Brewer side, it's kind of the same thing because Ryan Braun was chalk today and he went yard, so everybody's gonna go back to the well against Scott Feldman. I don't see why they wouldn't. Then again, his price is expensive, so maybe people come off because he's too expensive. Thames was chalk today; he did well. So I feel like people are just gonna go right back to the well. They're gonna go right back to these guys. I think it's interesting to go look from Travis Shaw down. I do like VR a little bit just because he did burn everybody today. He was mega chalk and he didn't come through at all. But yeah, regression is coming for Feldman, and this is a good ballpark. It's against a team that's interesting. The problem is as much as we're talking bad about Feldman, we have to admit there's a chance that this luck keeps going, and the Brewers are a team that can make anybody look lucky or anybody look good. So at the same time, I wouldn't be so surprised if Feldman shut down this team. But I still think the Brewers, as of right now, is probably one of my more favorite stacks. Does that make sense?
I mean, nothing surprises me in baseball anymore. I mean, Jared Weaver exactly shut out the Rockies in four back-to-back days. So, I mean,
and then Trevor Story hits a home run off Bumgarner in the freaking San
Francisco. Hey, it's baseball. Anything can happen. Yeah. But I'm still not of the mindset of I'm not going to do the research. Nothing matters. Like, I'm going to do the research. I'm going to make the best plays I can, and I think in the long run, I'm going to make money.
Yes, I agree. So yeah, people might say, oh, all you guys, you tell people to play the chalk tournaments. Hey, listen, we tell you what we like and what we play. That's the bottom line. It's like, and
that's right.
And come check over the long run, and then we can have a debate then.
Yep. Exactly.
All right. So, yeah, I think we're both in agreement. I'm not crazy about the pitchers. I do like both the hitters. I think that it could be chalky, so you might want to, you got to look at other ways to make your lineup more contrarian in tournaments. But in cash games, I think you can get a lot of your cash guys from here. Ready to move on?
Yep.
All right. We got my New York Mets with Noah Syndergaard, Thor, taking on the lefty Adam Conley. The Mets have been red hot. Noah Syndergaard, I wrote down here, beast, exclamation point, exclamation point. Thor, exclamation point. So Thor's career swinging strike rate is 13.4%. That's pretty high. He's got about 8.29 strikeout to walk ratio. 8.29 strikeout to walk ratio versus righties. That's crazy. He gives up about 0.94 home runs per innings versus lefties and 0.65 home runs per innings versus righties. The guy's just a beast. On the other side, we got Adam Connolly. He's got decent K upside himself, 21.2% in 2016. His velocity is down, which is very concerning, from 91 to 89.4. Believe it or not, he struggles versus lefties as far as control. He doesn't seem to have control of his pitches. 6.07 K per nine versus lefties, 4.19 walks per 9 innings versus lefties. Against righties, 8.87 K per nine, so he's done well against righties in his career, and his walks are slightly down but still a little high at 3.66 walks per 9 innings. And then, his home run per 9 innings to righties is 1.05. So what are we doing here?
Well, I'm going to ask you that question. You're the Mets guy.
Yes.
I mean,
okay, so I took reins on the Mets again on the podcast yesterday, and I was right about Giseleman. I said don't play Giseleman. Don't be fooled by his price. Don't be fooled by his numbers last year. I don't think he's very good. He's not as good as these other guys. I don't know why everybody's hyping him up. I said I thought he got lucky. Last year, I give him props. He pitched with like a serious shoulder injury. I think he had like a torn rotator cuff last year, and he pitched through it for most of the year. So I give him props. He got the job done. But I would look at his numbers, and I just wouldn't see anything good. So I was right about him. I was wrong about the Mets bats. I didn't like them against Chen. I don't like them against lefties. I still don't like them against lefties. But I was certainly wrong. The Mets exploded. Cespedes had another multi-home run game. Flores, it's against a lefty, so he's always in play. The only guy that didn't do well was the guy that me and you played, Asdrubal Cabrera.
Yeah.
But
hey, there's still time.
Yeah.
There's still time. It's the 15th inning right now.
Oh my gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah. They're going to 16th.
So going back to the Mets, one guy on FanDuel that I think is super interesting, and I promise you it's not because I'm a homer. It's just because I think this price with his upside is kind of ridiculous. Jose Reyes, assuming he was benched, so assuming he goes back to the starting lineup, I don't know where he's going to bat. But if he bats first, which is a possibility, he's 2.2 on FanDuel. He's extremely cheap. So can I trust him in cash games with the floor he's been showing? I don't know if I can. Maybe you have to check with me tomorrow. But in tournaments, I think he's an interesting option. I don't think I would stack the Mets here. They're red hot. I'm not going to tell you to fade them. They're red hot. I'll never tell you to fade a red hot team. But it just seems to me like they're going to be somewhat popular. Flores is 2.6 on FanDuel. Reyes is 2.2 on FanDuel. Asdrubal Cabrera 3.3 on FanDuel. There's a lot of cheap guys. Neil Walker 2.9. So it's possible that this could be one of the chalkier lineups with Kershaw and maybe even Syndergaard, people who play Syndergaard. As far as the Marlins bats, I have a feeling at least one of these guys is going to hit a home run because it seems like there's always at least one guy.
Don't do it.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing it. I don't go against Thor. The very worst I do on a Thor slate is not play Thor, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to play him in cash because Kershaw's on the slate. I'm tempted to for the savings. I am, not going to lie, but I don't think I will. But anyway, I'm not taking any Marlins, but I will say, whoever's the daredevil out there that wants to try it, I wouldn't be surprised if at least one of these guys hits a dong off Syndergaard tomorrow. I'm not doing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if one person did. Matt, what do you got for me?
Well, the question is not, do we like Thor or not?
Yeah.
We like Thor. He strikes everybody out. We love pitchers pitching in Miami. It's a great ballpark for pitchers. The question is, do we like him more than Kershaw for the savings that we're getting? Looking over at FanDuel, I think their prices are close enough that I might lean Kershaw still. On DraftKings, it's hard not to play Thor to me because it's just 2,200 difference is just a lot. I mean, that's... No, 2100. Yeah, 2100. So it's not, the question is not, do we like him? It's, do we like him more than Kershaw for 2100 less? Do we like him more than Cueto for 200 less?
Yep.
I like him more than Cueto for 200 less, for sure. So that's really the question. I'm not on the Mets bats tomorrow. I have a decent amount of respect for Adam Conley. Oh, but you know what? Take that back. I'm watching this game in the 16th inning, and Adam Conley just is on the mound.
Adam Conley's on the mound?
Adam Conley is on the mound in the 16th inning right now.
Oh, wait. Did he?
So
I think Darno just hit a home run.
Oh, I must be 30 seconds behind you. Yep, there it is. There it goes.
Did he hit it off Connolly?
Yep, he sure did.
I was going to tell you guys to play Connolly. I was going to tell you guys to play Darno, and then I just realized Darno doesn't play when Syndergaard's pitching. Rivera always plays.
Yep.
Wow. So that's going to switch things up for us. Obviously, we're going to have to figure
so
out.
I don't know who's pitching for the Mets tomorrow. I mean, for the Marlins, but I'm going to assume it's someone bad, and I'm going to assume that I'm going to like the Mets.
Yeah, I think my interest in the Mets, especially because think about it, they were priced to go up against a lefty. And so we could get somewhat of a discount because Connolly is not the best by any means, but he's not that bad either. Like, he's a guy that we've seen have decent outings. There's a reason he's still one of the stars.
Well, but pay attention, because if they throw a righty tomorrow, you got Granderson and Bruce and Conforto and Neil Walker, and they're all really cheap.
Yes, you're right. And keep in mind, Neil Walker is a lot better against righties than he is against lefties. Keep that in mind. That's a great point.
That changes thing. We don't know as of this moment who it's going to be tomorrow. I'll try to find it.
Right.
But that changes things, so pay attention.
Yeah, it does. And as long as it's a righty, I don't think there's any righties on the Marlins starting lineup now, or even at all pitching, that I'd be afraid of. And the Mets are red hot, so my interest in the Mets just rose. We'll put it that way. I'm definitely a lot more interested in the Mets than I was. You want to move on?
Sure. Yeah, let's move on.
All right. We've got, let me flip my page. We got Chris Archer of the Tampa Bay Rays visiting Rick Porcello of the Boston Red Sox. About 54 degrees, 49% humidity out in Boston. We know Archer's got some high K upside. In 2016, he gave up a lot of home runs. He had kind of a down year, but so far this season, he's looked pretty good. Again, Porcello also has decent K upside, about 20% over the last 2 seasons, which is higher than his career. So, he was never really known as a strikeout guy. In the last 2 years, all of a sudden, he's been getting it done. He's got a higher whip versus lefties and a higher WOBA versus lefties. So typically lefties is his weakness. What are we doing here?
Well, I am a Chris Archer homer. I really, in general, I love Chris Archer. He won me all the money last year, so I really like him. Generally, I hate targeting pitchers in Fenway against Boston. But I think tomorrow I probably will roll him out a little bit because I kind of like his price and I like his upside compared to everybody else at his price. And I think it's worth a gamble given that I don't think the Red Sox are quite clicking right now. And they're not what they were last year without David Ortiz.
Yeah.
And certainly you would think, Chris Archer would benefit a lot by not having David Ortiz in that lineup. Yeah. So I do have some interest in Chris Archer. I never have interest in Rick Porcello for his price. I just feel like the upside isn't there for the price that you're paying.
Agreed.
Did we say the weather in this game? Is it supposed to be cold?
It's supposed to be about 54, which I would imagine is going to get colder as the game goes on.
Yeah, I want to look at Tampa Bay's prices real quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're too expensive for me to want to play them against Porcello. So I really, I could hear some people saying tomorrow, let's stack Boston because Archer can give up home runs and this and that, but I'm not going to do it. I have no interest in any of the bats in this game. And I have a little interest in Chris Archer, and that's it.
Okay. I'm not crazy about the Red Sox. I think Archer's very interesting. On FanDuel, the Red Sox are priced pretty fairly outside of Mookie Betts, so I think they're interesting for tournaments on FanDuel because, like we said, we're looking for cheap stacks that we can play. And I think FanDuel made it interesting. They have Kershaw, but then they made a lot of these other teams kind of cheap. Like even the Rays, too. Corey Dickerson has some really good career numbers against Porcello. He's only 2.9. Logan Morrison is 2.3. He's got great career numbers against Porcello. I'm not a big BVP guy. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but I do look at it. I don't weigh a lot of decisions on it, but I do look at it just to get an idea of how familiar a hitter is with a certain pitcher. The Archers looked really well, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm curious to see how the Red Sox have hit him in the past. Let me just pull that up. They hit him okay, about 272 as a team against them. I think like Moreland's got decent numbers. Mookie Betts has great numbers. Pablo Sandoval, Hanley, they all got pretty good numbers. But there's something off about this Red Sox team, right? They don't look like the same Red Sox of last year. Obviously, they don't have Big Papi. But one player, the rest of the team just hasn't been performing. They've been sick. There's been a lot going on. I think Alexander Bogaerts just had a kid, I think, or something. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I like the Rays a little more in this matchup, and specifically the lefties: Corey Dickerson, Kiermaier, Miller, Morrison. I think those guys are interesting, but I'm a little scared to take the Red Sox, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, I don't like the bats on either side, and they're kind of just too expensive on DraftKings, and the weather's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be super contrarian, that's cool, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. I think a super contrarian way to go would even be to take the Boston guys because Archer's been so hot, but I don't think I can go there. I do have interest in the Rays a little bit, though. Ready to move on?
Yep, and your boy Asdrubal just got a hit.
He got a hit?
So we're...
All right.
Yeah, we get a 0 out of all of our lineups.
All right, we got a 3 now. That's so cool.
Yep.
All right, let's see. We got I can never say this guy's first name. Jowley? Jessine?
Just don't
his
even
last
try.
name. Okay. Jessine.
Just say Chasine. Everybody
we'll call
knows
him
he's terrible.
Jay Chasine.
Yeah.
The righty from the
Jay
San Diego
Chasine.
Padres. Yes, he's terrible. Yeah. They do know that by now, I hope. Visiting Julio Teheran of the Atlanta Braves, about 77 degrees, 49% humidity, no real chance of rain. No real K upside with Chasine at all. I can't say at all because his career numbers versus righties actually aren't all that bad as far as strikeouts go. He's averaging about 8.08 Ks per 9 versus righties, but against lefties, it's 5.72 K per 9 versus lefties, so he gets mashed by lefties. He has a hard time. He also walks a lot of lefties, 4.35 walks per inning versus lefties. The next note that I wrote on him was not good versus lefties. So it pretty much ends there. As far as Teheran, he's got really good K upside, 21% for his career, 25.3% K rate against righties, 1.65 walks per 9 inning. He really doesn't walk righties, 5.36 strikeout per walk ratio versus righties, and a .75 home run per inning versus righties. Against lefties, this is a different story. 16.8% K rate, 3.25 walks per 9 innings, 2.01 strikeout to walk ratio, I should say, and then a 1.38 home run per 9 innings. So he's also bad against lefties. So I know that's a lot of information I just spit at you. What are we doing here?
I was just gonna say, boy, that's a lot of information. You know what? I think this game is really interesting. It's the Padres and the Braves, so no one is going to pay any attention to this game because both teams are terrible and nobody cares. But I'll be interested to see. This is their new stadium, the first game in their new stadium.
Oh,
so it's not like
right.
the old Turner Field that was terrible for hitting.
You're right. I forgot all about that.
It might be good for hitting. I don't know, but anyways, it's supposed to be 81 degrees at first pitch and the wind blowing out to left field. And, we know Chasine is bad. I don't know if I've ever stacked the Braves in my whole life. Playing DFS, this is like my third year. I don't know if I've ever done it one time. But you just said Chasine is bad against lefties. The Braves have a pretty good lefty.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman.
This Freddie Freeman guy's pretty good. And not only that, they have this Inciarte's decent. Markakis, I never liked him play him because he doesn't have any power. But
right.
I guess there's an argument to be made for the Braves, and no one will be on them. And then on the other side, the Padres are dirt cheap. I mean, really cheap.
Yeah.
So this could be an interesting spot to kind of get really different. Like, I would rather get weird in this game than in the last game we talked about, Tampa Bay and Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there'll be a little less traffic on it. The players are cheaper and less well known, and the weather is just way better. I'd rather go in a spot with 80-degree weather than 55-degree weather.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, and Will Myers and Ryan Schimpf and this Margot guy and who's the other outfielder that I played a bunch of Coors? Oh, Hunter Renfroe. I mean, all these guys have some power.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very interested in this game. I'm obviously not playing Chacin. You can play Turan, and on DraftKings if you want to. I think he's fine.
Yeah, I definitely think you hit it on the head as far as ownership. Nobody's going to be on this game at all. And that definitely, a guy like Freddie Freeman may be popular because there really aren't, there's not too many elite first basemen to pay up for to begin with. So I can understand if he's popular, but I'm more interested on the Padres side because they play in a ballpark that's probably bigger than this one anyway. So they're kind of used to that. So a guy like Ryan Schimpf, a lefty who we just mentioned, Tehran struggles mightily against lefties. Even a guy like Jankowski's got some stolen base upside. So even a guy like him I think is interesting. But Tehran walks a lot of lefties. So if he can get on by walk, he can be in for a couple stolen bases. So yeah, I think you're right. I kind of like the bets here. I don't know if I could see a full stack from either side, but there's definitely some bets that I'm interested in for sure here.
Yeah, I mean, there's maybe 4 or 5 guys on the Braves that are interesting, and 6 maybe on the Padres.
Right. Yeah.
I like Myers, Schimpf, Solarte, Margot, Renfroe, and Jankowski. Once you get past that, it's pretty ugly. I mean, Hedges stinks. Ibar, you can't play.
Yeah, I think the only righty that I would even consider on the Padres is Will Myers, and that's only because, one, I think it'll be an interesting pivot off of Freeman, who I think will be chalk, like a leverage play, and two, Myers actually hits righties a lot better than he does lefties. So anyway, ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, Dylan Covey, the righty for the White Sox, visiting Alberto Mejia, the lefty for the Minnesota Twins. Could have some bad weather here. 60 degrees, about 53% chance of precipitation, 87% humidity. Let's see. There wasn't much. I think it's just. Is it his first MLB start? This Dylan Covey guy. Is it his first one?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, when I look at this game like hurts my head to look at.
Yeah.
You have this Alberto Mejia guy. I wrote up in my article to stack against him the other day against Minnesota. Oh no, he is for Minnesota against the White Sox,
right.
And they ran him out of the building in an inning and a half.
Right.
I mean, he's just terrible.
Right.
So when I first looked at it, I was like, yeah, I want to stack both these teams. And then I pulled up the weather, and it's just a complete travesty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just 58 degrees, 93% chance of thunderstorm. It looks like a rain day. Like, this game's not going to play. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I would love to just cross this game off the slate.
You know who I'll tell you who's going to be playing this game. Benjamin.
Oh,
yes, our buddy Ben. Yes, our buddy Ben is going to be all over this. He always chases those weather games. He's going to be all over this.
So we got to break it down. We'll break it down just for him. So Mejia is the perfect matchup for the White Sox because the White Sox have all righties and they mash lefties. Yeah. So the White Sox are really intriguing here.
Yeah.
And that's who he just ran out of the building by, and he's facing them again.
On FanDuel, the White Sox are just ridiculous. Abreu was 2.8. Todd Frazier is the most expensive. He's 3.5. Avisel Garcia 3.2. They're super, super cheap on FanDuel.
Yeah, and they're really expensive on DraftKings too.
Oh,
4,600 for Todd Frazier, 4,400 for Abreu, 4,100 for Melky.
Wow.
Yeah. So the White Sox are certainly in play. They're too expensive on DraftKings, but on FanDuel they're would be a really good stack if the game plays. And then I literally know nothing about Dylan Covey, so I just don't even know what to say.
The only thing I know about him is I looked up his numbers on Fangraphs, and there really wasn't much because it's all minor league stuff, and they don't have a lot. But 5.22 walks per 9 inning rate. So apparently this guy gets a little wild. I think that I think people are going to stay away from this game if the weather continues to look bad. If it clears up, people are going to be all over the Twins. And I think the people that do play this game are going to like the Twins because the Twins just went nuts on the Tigers. And I don't mind the Twins, don't get me wrong. I just like the White Sox way more. I think people are going to get so focused on, oh, the Twins are red hot. They have a 4.9 run projection. So I think that either way, this game, if the weather forecast stays bad, you're in for some low ownership on both sides. But I think the White Sox will be even less owned than the Twins, considering they're underdogs. But they have a 4.2 run projection themselves, and like you said, they just ran this guy Mejia out of the building. So, I think the White Sox bats that could be interesting for tournaments if you're willing to wait out that weather and take the chance on FanDuel anyway because of their price, specifically on FanDuel. I think that's something to consider.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, ready to move on?
Yep.
Jesse Ramirez of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Against the, I know you like that. That's why I throw that in there. And then the lefty going to get visiting the lefty, Danny Duffy, about 75 degrees, humidity about 58%. Looks like there's some decent winds, about 15 miles an hour, currently blowing out to about left or so. I have to pay attention closer to game time. Let's see. So let's see what I read about Ramirez. Usually I think he's a bullpen guy. He seems to be home run prone based off his numbers. He's got a high whip on both sides, which is not very good. Danny Duffy, we know he's got huge K upside. He gives up a decent amount of home runs to righties, and he also walks a decent amount of righties at 3.59. So that's one of the downsides. But he does have some K upside. What are we doing here?
Well, I don't like Danny Duffy just because the Angels don't strike out. But
that to you, Darvish.
I don't like the Well, I'll say this, and I wrote this in my article this morning. I think Yu Darvish, his stuff is so elite that that sort of stuff doesn't matter. I don't think Duffy is on that level, so I think it does matter. If that makes sense.
I completely agree.
Yeah, so that's why I'm not really on Duffy, and there's some other guys I like better. Anyways, JC Ramirez stinks, so I do like the Royals a fair bit. I hate targeting the Royals. I hate targeting hitters in this ballpark. So it curbs my interest a little bit, but they're really cheap. So I think I'm going to have a few Kansas City stacks for sure.
Yeah, they just burned me today, but I mean, they're projected for 5 runs, and they're going up against a bullpen guy. I hate the ballpark, but the wind is blowing out. That could change things a little bit. So I think you have to consider them. You know, now that we're going through all this, FanDuel made it so that you could still pretty much play any stack you want. You can't necessarily get all the players you want, but you can get the teams you want. There's enough cheap guys on each team so far that you could still pay up for pitcher and still get your favorite stack. So I think picking the right team is what it's going to come down to in tournaments tomorrow night for FanDuel for sure. And I think on DraftKings it's definitely a lot more price related because DraftKings the prices are a lot tougher.
Yeah, they sure are.
But yeah, like you said, I think the Royals have to be looked at. They're at least interesting. Despite having one of the higher run totals, people are going to shy away because they don't want to target that park, and I don't blame them. But on a big slate like this, sometimes you got to get a little funky. So I think you can consider them. The Angels are interesting. They play in a big park also. I'm not crazy about these guys, but you still have to consider them. Mike Trout on FanDuel is 5.1. You want to talk about somebody that's going to be low owned on FanDuel? I don't think anybody's going to have Mike Trout because they're going to be paying up for Kershaw and Thor and all these guys. 5.1 is crazy on FanDuel. So you want to talk about a guy that's going to go unowned. He's one for you. Good luck trying to fit him, though, if you want to play Kershaw.
Yeah.
You want to move on?
He's good at baseball, Mike Trout.
He's good at baseball. Yeah. You ready to go?
All right, let's move on.
All right, we got Dallas Keuchel, the lefty of the Houston Astros, visiting Kendall Graveman, the righties of the Oakland A's. About 57 degrees forecasted, humidity about 61%. Keuchel had a rough 2016, but he's got decent K upside. We know that. He's got a pretty high whip to righties, 1.31. But so far in 2017, he's looked okay. Graveman, his velocity, we talked about, Matt, you pointed this out earlier. His velocity is way up. I'm going to let you talk about him in a minute, but it went from 92.7 to 94.4. That's a significant increase. He gives up a lot of walks to lefties, 3.38 walks per 9 innings, and he gives up a lot of home runs to righties at 1.44 home run per 9 innings. But maybe that'll change. What are we doing here?
Well, I love targeting pitchers in this stadium, and we talked about that before. And I've watched Kendall Graveman his first 2 starts, and I'm like laying on the couch watching, and I'm like, did he really just throw 97? Like, I remember last year, like, this guy doesn't strike anybody out. Like, he's no good. And then I watch it, he's striking people out throwing 97. I'm like, this guy has to be juicing. Like, he just has to. Like, anyways, that being said, like, I do have interest in him on DraftKings as a starting pitcher too, because we know Houston's super right-handed. We know they strike out a lot. We know it's really hard to hit home runs in this ballpark. So I have to have interest in Graveman, even though I can't believe I said it out loud. And then Dallas Keuchel, he is the pitcher that I like in this kind of 9K price range on DraftKings for all the reasons I just mentioned about the ballpark. And then I just think Oakland's lineup stinks, and all those sorts of things. And he does look a lot better to me this season than he did last season. And for all the reasons I just mentioned why I like the pitchers, I do not like the hitters.
That's interesting. You know, from just from a lineup construction perspective, and I'm speaking of FanDuel, the Houston guys, the stars, they're still priced up. George Springer, 4.1. Jose Altuve, 3.9. Carlos Correa, 3.7. So on FanDuel, they're priced up, but that's expensive for FanDuel. That makes me think this could be an interesting way to go for tournaments if you could figure out a way to pay up for these guys. And listen, I'm on the boat with you with Graveman, and Houston strikes out with the best of them, so I wouldn't be surprised if Graveman had a good game, even if some of these Astros went off on him. But he does have a pretty high home run rate against righties, so that is a little concerning. And obviously, even the Houston guys, Springer, Altuve, Correa, they all hit righties better than they hit lefties anyway.
Yep, sure.
So this is a ballpark nobody's going to want to go to. The prices are up there. They're trying to fit Kershaw. They're trying to fit Thor. I think from FanDuel specifically, from a lineup construction standpoint, this could be a lower-owned stack just purely because they're expensive.
It'll be low on DraftKings too, for sure, because they're expensive. People aren't going to go here.
It's going to be tough to make it work, but it's a way. It's something to consider.
Well, it'll certainly be different. I mean, I want to see real quick. I'll do a Houston stack and see what you end up with. And Reddick batted in the 2-hole the other day.
He's that's pretty cheap on FanDuel still.
Yeah. So if you go 1 through 5, and let's say we use Archer as and like Trevor Bauer. You could go Archer, Bauer, the top 5 on Houston, and you'd have 4,400 left per player for first, third, and outfield.
Oh, that's not bad.
So yeah, I mean, you could do it. And then you just need Archer to have a 30-point game. You need Bauer to have a 25-point game, and you need the Astros to score 8 or 9 runs. That could happen.
No, that's definitely interesting. It was an interesting way to go. As far as the A's go, I think Semion's interesting because he was super chalk today and he did nothing. So I wouldn't be surprised if people hopped off of him now that he's going up against Keuchel, a decent pitcher. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit a dong. We know he's capable of it, but I'm not too crazy about the A's bats though in general.
Gosh, he was 31% owned today.
Oh yeah, forget about it. In cash, he was like 70%.
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, I had a feeling because the shortstop was just so ugly, and he was leading off against a lefty. Yep. It just, it kind of seemed like it. You ready to move on?
Yeah. Yep, I'm ready to move on. I had him a bunch, and I had your boy as Drupal a bunch, and they both were.
Oh, it's Drupal.
Steve.
Oh, it's Drupal.
Yeah.
Here we go. We got one for you here. A pitching matchup. Zach Greinke, formerly of the Los Angeles Dodgers, currently of the Arizona Diamondbacks, visiting Clayton Kershaw, the lefty from the Los Angeles Dodgers. I got nothing to say on these guys. I think you know them. Literally under Kershaw for my notes, I wrote in big letters Kershaw. So it's just, I think we all know the deal. One thing I will say about Greinke, he had a rough 2016. He went from an awesome pitcher's park in Los Angeles to a horrible pitcher's park in Arizona. He does have K upside, and he does have good career numbers. So I still believe he's good. Not as good as Kershaw, but I still believe he's good. Matt, tell us what we're doing with the Dodgers here.
I mean, he's a good pitcher, but I'm not using him in this spot because we know the Dodgers are really good against right-handed pitchers. So I don't like him a whole lot, and he's just too expensive. If he were 1,000 less, I might start having interest, but he's just too expensive. I mean, we know Kershaw's the best. He's super expensive, and we know Arizona strikes out a lot. We know Dodger Stadium is good for pitchers. I mean, just seeing this kind of makes me want to buy some tickets and go to the game tomorrow. So you never know, I might do it.
You better tweet it out because we all know if Matt Amon goes to a Dodger game, stack the Dodgers.
Yeah, Yeah, well, I liked it a lot better when Chassin was pitching than when Zach Greinke was pitching. So maybe I can't go to the game. That, and it takes 3 hours to get there, even though it's only 20 miles from my house.
I love traffic.
But, oh, man. Hey, when I go to the Angel game, it's amazing. It takes me 15 minutes to get there. There's never any traffic. You go to Dodger Stadium, I mean, it's so hard to get there. But anyways, that has nothing to do with this. No Arizona bets, obviously. The Dodgers, because they're good against righties, there's several guys you can go as one-offs. I'm not going to stack them, but Seager or Turner or Grandal are all kind of interesting, but I'm probably not going to do it.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do it either. I do think Seager. I mean, I kind of have a lot of interest in Seager. He's 2.9 on FanDuel. I understand it's against Greinke, but that's a crazy price. Now, I would imagine Greinke's going to be a little extra pumped up. You always have a little edge when you're going back to the team, your former team. You always have that little.
And
edge.
He will too. He's that type.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm not crazy about the bats either, but Seager's the one guy whose price is popping out at me. I mean, he's a young kid. He's quick enough to hit Greinke, and he's a lefty, and he's only 2.9, so he's interesting. But I'm not crazy about the bats either. But we do love the pitching, of course, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like I said, I mean, if you can fit Kershaw in and it works, of course you want to do it.
On FanDuel, it's not a problem. On FanDuel, you can definitely fit him in. The issue is there's still you can get greedy and pay down for a guy like even Syndergaard against Miami. He's significantly cheaper, and then you could really afford to go anywhere you want just by going down to Syndergaard. So I think that could be the trap people may fall for, or it's the solution to the problem, and that's the way to go. But in cash games, if Kershaw's not that's the thing though, because there's so many good pitchers, Kershaw's ownership could be a little lower than we're used to, just because there's so many other pitchers out there.
His ownership on DraftKings, I don't think will be that high.
Right, because he's too expensive. And on FanDuel, just out of greed, you got Archer, you got Keuchel, you got so many other pitchers, Syndergaard, that people may get greedy and he's going to be popular, but he might not be as popular as he was like in his first start. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If I was playing cash on FanDuel, I would
without a doubt,
Kershaw.
he's the cash game lock for sure. He'll be in my cash games 100%.
On DraftKings, it's more complicated because it comes down to, for cashes, it's like, do you want Kershaw and, Archer or Kershaw and Bauer, or would you rather have Syndergaard and Dallas Keuchel?
Yeah, it's a much tougher decision to make, for sure. All right, let's move on. We got Martin Perez, the lefty from the Texas Rangers, visiting King Felix Hernandez, the righty from the Seattle Mariners. Looks like about 50 degrees, light rain, about 52% chance of precipitation, 69% humidity. Let's see here. So Martin Perez is another guy whose velocity is up, which is common in the beginning of the season. These arms are rested. So he's throwing from 92.7. He's up to 94.2. Let's see. He's not really a strikeout guy, but the velocity raise could help a little bit. Believe it or not, against lefties he could strike him out, but that's pretty common for a lefty. 21.2% strikeout rate for his lefties, but against righties, 12.2. That's very low. His numbers in general against righties are horrible, which is what you would expect from a mediocre pitcher that's left-handed. King Felix, in 2016, we saw a strikeout regression in 2016. It was, just to give you an idea, his career numbers are 22.9%. In 2016, he finished with an 18.6% K rate. That's pretty low for him. In 2016, his velocity was down from 91.8 to 90.5, so I think that could have hurt him. It's back up right now to 91.2, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him okay. He does have he has a pretty high walk rate to lefties as well. So what are we doing here?
I don't like King Felix anymore. I think he's definitely on the downturn, and we're still paying a premium for him. So I'm not very interested in him against Texas because I have a lot of respect for Texas. Martin Perez, it's hard. You can't really stack against him because he's an extreme ground ball pitcher, like 60-some% ground balls. So it's like he's not very good, and you don't want to play him, but I also don't want to stack against him. On DraftKings, though, this is another spot where we're talking about all these sneaky stacks to pair with expensive pitchers. Texas is dirt cheap, and I definitely have some interest in Texas.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Initially, I did too, especially because I feel like on a contrarian level for multiple reasons. One, against King Felix, people don't want to go there, not realizing that he's not been the same King Felix for a while. Two, ballpark is huge, and three, the weather is kind of cold. So, um, for the same reasons that I think Texas will be low owned, I'm a little skeptical to go there. Now, Texas has the power to do it, and they got all their power guys are lefties, which works in their favor against Hernandez. So I think you can go there. I'm not. I don't hate it. I don't know if I'm gonna go there just because this is a situation where the weather and the ballpark combine together. I'm just not a fan of that.
I wish I knew a Seattle guy because this is interesting because that stadium is retractable roof.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I feel
That's
like
right. I forgot about that.
I feel like it's only like half a retractable roof. Like if it's raining, they put the roof off and no one gets wet, but it's still cold. Like it's not like a full
You
dome.
got like the air
You know what I
conditioning
mean?
or heat.
Like there's no like Toronto's a dome, Miami's a dome, Houston's a dome, but I feel like Seattle might not be. I would, if somebody knows the answer to that, I'm going to try to figure that out because I've asked that question to myself like 20 times lately.
Yeah, so if you're listening to the podcast and you know anything, or maybe you're from the area of Seattle, let us know. Tweet Matt Amon at Matt Amon123. Let him know. He wants to know, and then he can tell me.
Yeah, is it going to be 50 in the stadium or is it going to be 72?
We want to know.
Because that matters.
Yeah, definitely matters. All right, you want to move on to the next game?
Yeah.
All right, we got Tyler Anderson, the lefty of the Rockies, visiting Johnny Cueto of the San Francisco Giants. Kind of chilly for California, but it is San Francisco, though. 56 degrees, 63% humidity, wind blowing out to right as of now, about 13 miles an hour. But that could change, of course. Pay attention. Tyler Anderson, he's got decent K upside, and his numbers are a little inflated negatively, or I should say deflated. I don't know how to say that. But because he pitches in cores half the time, I think a lot of his numbers aren't true. Like, it looks like he gets bombed. He gives up a lot of home runs. I'm sure he does give up a lot of home runs because I don't think he's that good anyway. But he's not nearly as bad as his numbers make him out to be because he plays in cores half the time. You got to remember that. Another thing I'll say, his velocity is way up from 90.8 to 92, and he's decent against lefties. He gets crushed against righties. Johnny Cueto, we know he has high K upside. His velocity is also up 91.5 to 92.6, and he walks. Sometimes he could walk a decent amount of lefties, but he's pretty good. What are we doing here?
You want to know something that's funny is Johnny Cueto is more expensive on DraftKings than Thor.
What?
On FanDuel, he's $2,200 less.
Wow. Yeah, Cueto. Yeah. What? Yeah. That is crazy.
Which, well, I mean, for me, like in tournaments, Cueto now becomes playable, on FanDuel because, the Rockies have been cold. They strike out a decent bit. There's actually a lot of strikeouts in that lineup.
A lot.
So he's interesting for me in tournaments. I'm not going to play him on DraftKings because, like I said, I'd rather have Thor. Tyler Anderson's a guy who actually went to Oregon, my alma mater. And last year I was kind of rostering him a bit. I think he's kind of a talented pitcher, but the first two starts out of the gate this year, he didn't look very good. So I'm going to wait and see. And we also know the Giants don't strike out a lot. So I don't have interest in Anderson. Like I said, Cueto for me on FanDuel, not on DraftKings. And then I hate targeting hitters in this park.
Yeah.
Like I just never do it. Like unless it's like an anomaly like the other night where Jake Lamb was just way too cheap against Matt Cain. Like that's all making an exception for that. But other than those rare instances, like I'm never rostering people in this game in this park. At night.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't like the park. I don't like the temperature. I don't like the game. I really don't. I'm not crazy about that. Cueto, I could see merit for in tournaments. But obviously, I play, I do play tournaments, obviously, but I play most. I'm more concerned about cash. That's where majority of my money goes. So Kershaw's my guy. So even Cueto, I kind of overlook him. But for tournaments, he'll be in the back of my mind. Of course, I think I like Thor more than him. But at that price, like you mentioned, on FanDuel, you're getting such a discount. It's kind of hard not to consider him. When he's that much cheaper than Thor anyway for tournaments. So but I don't like any of the hitters here at all. Anyway, go ahead.
I was gonna say this game that they're playing tonight is coming right down to the wire now. The Rockies have a 3-1 lead. in the bottom of the ninth, and the Giants have the bases loaded and one out.
How many people do you think are going to take Story because he did a bomb off Bumgarner?
I hope a lot. I don't think anyone's going to fall for that.
I hope not. I hope not.
But I hope they do.
Oh yeah, well I guess so. I hope they do. I hope they do. But I hope our listeners don't. Right? Our listeners don't, but the rest of the public does. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, anyways, what kind of price? You wouldn't have thought that the Rockies would have gone into San Francisco and beaten Bumgarner. But anyways, this is where the Giants get lucky. Mm-hmm. No! Nunez hit into double play to end the game.
What? They lose, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. And then, John Gray, who I like a lot, was out of the game in like the second inning.
He got hurt,
the Giants didn't even do it.
Yeah, I think he must have got hurt. I think he got hurt. I don't know what happened to him, but I'm pretty sure he got hurt.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway,
So anyway, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
It's all good, man. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for our game-by-game breakdown. It's now time for the Dong Watch game. Matt, do me a favor. Can you write down the picks? Because I don't have a pen here. I'm digging around for my pen. I don't have it. I normally have one. If you can just write them down and send them to me. So, Matt,
you go first. I've gone first every time.
Oh, see, that's my secret. I let other people go first so that I get time to think about it. That's my secret right there.
I mean, I'll go first if you want me to.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to go with Ryan Schimpf. I know it's kind of off the wall, but I have some interest in the Padres. I typically like them better against lefties, but I'm going to take a shot with Schimpf. I'm going to go for Schimpf.
Okay, I am going to go with Ryan Braun. And scrolling down. And then I'll go with Edwin Encarnacion.
Okay, I can dig it.
Okay, so you have Schimpf. I have Edwin. And who did I just say? Ryan Braun. I forget from 10 seconds ago.
Okay, what did I just say?
Okay.
All right, so you just picked two, so then I pick two here?
Yeah, you get two, okay. Yep.
I'm going to go with... Oh, this is not... I'm going to go Corey Dickerson as one of them. I know I'm going off the wall here, but I feel like I have to because I'm trying to get in that mindset. I'm trying to get in that mindset to be able to pick these guys with Kershaw. You know what I mean?
And you have such a big lead from that one day that you have to try to let us catch up a little bit.
I'm gonna go with George Springer for my last guy. George Springer against Graveman. Okay. Some off the wall plays, okay. but hey, listen, they're guys that will make my lineups in one way or another, whether it's cash or tournaments. I have interest in those guys for sure.
Freddie Freeman.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. When I didn't pick him, I was like, when I picked Schimpf, I looked at Freeman. I was like, I have a feeling he's gonna pick Freddie Freeman.
I just start at the top of the prices and I just scroll down until I see somebody I like.
That's a good strategy. I like it. Yeah. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for us on the WiseTake DFS podcast. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button. It means a lot to us. If you're listening on Podbean, give us a follow. Leave us some comments. If you're listening through iTunes, please subscribe and write us more reviews. We listen to your reviews. We're trying to cater the show to you guys. Whatever you guys think will help, we'll give it a shot. We'll try it out. Listen, big shout out to Fuego. Awesome day today, man. You killed the pod last night. You killed the morning slate. Congratulations, man. Enjoy your money. Do something fun. I do think you owe a thank you to Matt, who blessed you with the Jesse Chavez avatar. I think you do him. You owe him at least a shout out, I think. Anyway, guys, listen. The cheat sheets have been on fire. Just so you know, in the early slate, the cheat sheets did like Miggy. A lot of those guys. Even the Twins, that I think they were up there a little bit as far as the ratings go. So you want to try these cheat sheets. They're only free for another week. After that, they're going to charge. So this is your chance. Use the cheat sheets for free, win your money, and then you can afford to pay off the rest of the subscription. Those cheat sheets are awesome, and the amount of information in that file is ridiculous. You don't have to go anywhere else. You have everything you're going to need right in those sheets. Also, man, watch the content that Daily Roto Sharks is pumping out has been awesome, and that stuff is free right now. You're getting Matt Stacks, you're getting BVP. articles. You're getting dong alert articles. You're getting all kinds of awesome stuff. Even Fuego's value articles. You're getting some fire stuff for free. So definitely, we big shout out to the sponsors, Daily Roto Sharks. It's always great to be part of the team. It's a great team there, big family atmosphere, even for the subscribers. They got a Slack chat where you can talk to you can talk to Ben, CG, Matt, some of the other guys are occasionally in there. So, that's definitely what you're going to do. Anyway, guys, it's been a blast. Don't forget we have a special weekend episode with Fuego for the NBA Playoff Podcast, and we're going to have special guests from Roto Grinders, runner-up in the FanDuel NBA Live Finals for Miami, winning 247. We're super excited about that. And then, of course, Sunday night, 11 p.m., I want you to come back, check the Twitter to see where to watch it. It's probably going to be on the Daily Roto Sharks website. We're going to do a live podcast breaking down Monday's slate. That's going to be Sunday night at 11 p.m. Anyways, for Matt Amon, for myself, as always, good luck.